He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Greetings, citizens of Fair Gotham. I almost didn't say Fair Gotham. That's my new thing. I need to do that every time. And welcome to Bat Minute Forever, the show that is here to help you mourn your losses 3 days a week. Oh. It's not that kind of show. We're going to be upbeat, don't worry. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And I am the other ghost. The other ghost? I am the ghost. Woo! I am the ghost of Niall McGowan. The little boy I live with, Killian, 2 years old. And he had, his first Halloween. The first Halloween, he kind of realized that stuff was going on. And he loves ghosts now. He just thinks ghosts are hilarious. So, because he just remembers, it was us putting on sheets and going, woo! And he just thought this was the greatest thing ever. So now it's the only kid I've ever met who, actively thinks ghosts are funny. Isn't in any way frightened by them.
That's amazing. That's a good start on his goth journey. But yes, we are joined here once again by our very special guest. We have author, writer, artist, Jack Harvey.
Yeah, I'm also painting Warhammer models again. So really, it's all downhill from here. The addiction is unfortunately back. So yeah, there you go. But thank you for including me once again.
The minute starts with the unbuckling of a bomb, and it ends with some deaths in the family.
That's good. That's good.
Oh.
That's a good reference, John.
That's good content.
I know. I came up with that as I was speaking. Pretty good. But yeah, so we're back, and the bomb is unbuckled by our dear Grayson.
That's the thing, though, because we're intercutting with back and forth and stuff. So now Dick has the bomb. He's clear of everyone else. But then it cuts back to a brother in free fall, slow motion free fall. It's one of those things this. This is a thing that should never be watched minute by minute because it's just it's so clearly a stunt. The guy's face is so stoic. He's not...
Yeah, he doesn't...
He's really got the kind of vibe of, guess I'll die now. He doesn't look like he's in any way anguished by this. He just looks like a guy who's bouncing up and down on a trampoline.
Yeah, it looks to me he's very focused. He's right, I need to get this right. He's not acting as he's doing it, which I know is a tall order. It's difficult to do those two things at the same time, but that's why... He's a professional. That's what he does.
You cut the two, you're saying, I need to get this right. That's exactly right, because at 2 seconds, he moves to get his elbow out, because that's the safe landing. Because that's clearly a stunt guy. You've been okay, so make sure you land properly.
You could argue, though, right? I'm going to be devil's advocate. You could argue the character is doing that with his arm, because he knows, this is the only chance of me maybe sticking this landing and not dying. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm choosing to think it's probably just actually no one's gonna be looking at this. Your focus is on his body basically because it's such a brief shot, and it's just you're wrapped up in the emotion of the scene and stuff. You won't be looking at this guy's face with his blatantly whatever kind of expression. And
he should be screaming or something.
Yeah. I do also like the idea that there was a day where everyone was just on this big trampoline and that they had a great time. Tommy Lee Jones was there and all the TwoFace gear bouncing up and down the trampoline. Jim Carrey came in for the day. He's I hear you got a trampoline here today.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
One interesting thing I noticed about this, you were maybe going to bring this up yourself, so sorry if I jumped in a little too early, but
go for it.
What I find amusing is that they start to fall, and then we cut back to Tommy Lee Jones and Bruce doing all sorts of stuff, and realistically speaking, within 2 seconds they should have hit the floor, but them falling is moving at a slower speed than what everybody else is doing. So it's they're falling, we've got some fist fighting, they're falling, we've got something else, they're still falling when, but what I find interesting about that is it's one of those things where it's kind of it's theatric license for the purposes of telling the story. But it is one of those things where it's kind of comic booky in a way, because it's one of those kind of things that only comic books can really do well, which is sort of like having two things unfolding at the same time. Like, you could have a page where you've got, say, like down the left side of the page, you've got the characters falling, and on the right side of the page, you've got the other characters doing something else. And you can't really do that in any other medium, really, without doing, like, splitting the screen. But I think if you say, for example, split the screen in this example, it would make the artificiality more obvious, if you know what I mean. Whereas time works differently in comic books than it does in books or films or even video games. You know, it's kind of like when you're a comic book writer, you've always got control of time in a way you don't in other contexts. So I thought that's kind of just an interesting little bit of meta commentary, you know.
What they're going to do, like the full-on like Carrie thing of just like the split screen showing you all these different things happening at the same time, or like in it's always a bit like, I remember at the time it was like an amazing shot. This is still a great movie, and it is actually still a really impressive feat. But like in the Rules of Attraction, you know, the other like the Sean Bateman, brother of Patrick Bateman movie, it has a bit where
I forgot about that. Yeah. Part of the American Psycho cinematic universe.
Yeah. I was like, apparently, I always thought that was regarded as a great movie. And I've looked it up recently. Apparently, there's like really bad reviews and stuff. I was like, I really love the Rules of Attraction. But yeah, there's a bit where there's like a split screen showing you Sean Bateman going to class, and then Shannon Sossaman also going to class. And it's all like him sitting in the toilet while she's like, you know, up out and about early and stuff, showing you like he's a real lazy prick, and she's actually up doing stuff. But the end of that is like the two of them come face to face, have a conversation, but it's still in split screen. And then the camera comes out, the screen joins, and they're standing looking at each other. But it's implied that she reaches over and takes off his sunglasses and then puts them on her face. And you're like, oh, that's a really cool little thing. And then if you look at it now, it's like her arm would have to be like 5 feet long to be able to reach over and get the sunglasses off his face. Well, that's because they're about a mile apart when you actually see them in the finished movie. But anyway, Rules of Attraction minutes. That's
coming soon.
But yeah, so at this point we do get into like flat out Dick Grayson doing you know, some days you can't get rid of a bomb stuff. I would have loved when he goes up into the rafters and he's like he pokes out and like he throws it into the water. There is just blatantly a family of ducks there, because it's just like, this ain't your grandpappy's Batman. We'll gladly kill the ducks.
And is that meant to be finally we are killing off any memory of the Penguin's little duckmobile thing?
That's just like, yeah, that was where the penguins from the previous movie were hanging out. Just like, oh, by the docks underneath the circus, and they're like, oh,
I think that would have been quite funny, actually. Put some penguins there.
I think they missed a trick. They could have referenced Batman Forever, where when the TwoFace and his goons escape down the hatch underneath the circus, you could have had them running past sort of like the tunnels that the Penguin was hovering around in Batman Returns.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if the geography works whatsoever, but you know, time isn't working normally with them falling down, so you know, you can get away with anything really.
But at this point, though, I think we should bring up the sort of the elephant in the room of, you know, this version of the death of the Graysons is that they, of course, have, you know, TwoFace is responsible for the murder of Dick Grayson's parents, which is not comic book accurate. Though it, weirdly enough, is in regards to Jason Todd, where Jason Todd's father was killed by TwoFace. And we'll be bringing that up throughout the rest of the movie, because there's a lot of things like they're kind of amalgamating their Robins in this movie, where they're like, you know, he is Dick Grayson, and we're taking the circus thing, but a lot of the angst and the anger and all that I'm going to kill TwoFace thing is entirely from Jason Todd, who was the second Robin. But of course, in the original comics, the still, you know, the Flying Grayson's still a trapeze act, still murdered by a criminal. But in that original comic story, it was a fella called Tony Zucco was responsible for the death of the Graysons. Basically, he was trying to extort money out of a guy who owned the circus, C.C. Halley. And when he couldn't get the money, he went and deliberately poured acid on the ropes, So, the acid would eventually erode the ropes and the Graysons would fall out. And then he'd come back to him and been like, well, I hope you don't have any more accidents, like that kind of thing. To be like, I'm threatening your workers, basically. Throughout that, like, the first issue is in Batman teams up with young Dick Grayson and they take down Tony Zucco very quickly. And then, there's extended comic book stuff where, like, Zucco gets out at one point and then he's gunned down. But, there's a lot of angst between Dick and Bruce over the whole situation and things like that. But Tony Zucco, of course, he is featured in, animated form in other projects. He's in the Batman animated series. They do the episodes Robin's Reckoning, which are great. Really, really, that's the Robin origin story is all about Tony Zucco is back in town. And Robin is gunning for revenge, basically. And Batman.
Oh, that actually sounds like doing something good with Robin.
Oh, it's a really, really great episode.
It is a great episode, yeah.
And Batman's constantly trying to push Robin aside. It's like, you shouldn't be getting involved in this. And Robin's taking it very personally because it's like, well, you killed my parents. What are you doing and stuff? But in that episode, he's played by Thomas F. Wilson, who everyone, of course, knows as Biff Tannen. Which is was a joy to hear because he's doing him very squeaky as well. It's Biff Tannen's voice, but he's really going high up and he's playing him a little unhinged and stuff.
This sounds amazing. What the hell?
It has one of my favorite moments in the Batman animated series where it's one of these things. It's one of my favorite moments, but whenever I describe it to other people, they're like, "Why would you like that?" Because they do a flashback to like the young Dick Grayson tracks down Tony Zucco and he confronts him. Batman intervenes. And then Batman's just knocking the crap out of Tony Zucco. Robin, because it's by like a reservoir or something. Robin, or Dick Grayson at that point, falls into the water and Batman has to go jump in the water after him. And then Tony Zucco, just like after like some random kids attacked him, he doesn't know why. Batman's appeared out of nowhere, started beating him up, doesn't know why. Then he just looks over, sees Batman and this kid seem to be drowning and are going to die in this reservoir. And he's just like, well, that's the end of the Bet and the Brat. And he's just like fixing his tie and just walks away.
Amazing.
It's just like, this would be like the biggest thing that ever happened to you. Like, Batman was beating me up for some reason. And now I think I killed him, kind of. He's just so like, oh, that's the end of the Bet and the Brat. It's like,
all in a day's work.
He's really fixing his tie, walking off, just like, well, get back to my day. But yeah, it was just infinite love for that moment. And just like, I don't know what I think it's also got that slight vibe of the fact that he says the Bat and the Brat. It's like a little rhyme. It gives me like that thing of Homer doing like, well, it looks like he's barking up the wrong bush. And it's just like, there it is, Homer, the smartest thing you ever see, and no one was around to say this. Imagine Tony Zucco telling people later on, I was like, then I said, that's the end of the Bat and the Brat. Like, you didn't say that, Tony. Like, you're not clever enough to think of that in the spot. I did. I honestly did.
Which one of us is... the appropriate one. Am I the Bat or am I the Brat?
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I mean, last episode I was talking about a comic about John Paul Jones and his attack on the British mainland. And there's always this story of when he was cornered by this fleet of Scottish ships, and they asked him to surrender, and he supposedly said, "Surrender, beat. I have not yet begun to fight." And that's this oft-repeated story that he had this witty one-liner, and I'm like, that didn't happen. He made that up weeks afterwards and told everybody that's what he said.
When he was in the shower, like, oh, you know what would have been great?
If anybody asks what I said when they asked me to surrender is surrender. I have not yet begun to fight. That's the story, guys. That's what we're sticking to.
In reality, he probably just went, no.
This is the thing, like, it was like the aftermath of the battle, he's riding away, and he's just like, oh, damn it, I just thought that turning around, going back.
That always happens, doesn't it? It always, every time even when we finish the show, when we finish these episodes, I'm like, why didn't we bring that up?
It always happens in editing, too, where you just think of a point, you're like, oh, that's not in there. Damn
well,
it,
I mean,
there's nothing you can do.
I mean, I'd literally just thought, last episode we were talking about all the other characters that have been Batman, and I didn't point out the obvious one for the episode, which is TwoFace has also been Batman, where he had this awesome bat outfit where like one side was black and one side was orange or something like that. So like even TwoFace has been Batman. And I wish I remembered to mention that in the previous episode, so now it's awkwardly just put out there in this episode.
Yeah. It's like things now you think, oh, it's safe that like, oh, you at least got it in here, so at least it's mentioned. But it will be between the Monday and the Wednesday, someone will pop up in the group and like, oh, Jack neglected to mention. Like, no, damn it, it's coming up.
Plus, in the moment, it's hard to remember these things, people at home. Yeah. You can't remember everything on the fly.
Well, the one thing I do definitely want to remember to say is that, and talk to people who performed as Tony Zucco, because I was Thomas F. Wilson, Biff Tannen did him in, the animated series. Then the other animated series, The Batman, came out in the post Batman Begins. He was voiced by Mark Hamill in that, so you can't get rid of that guy. Like
nobody seems to really talk about the Batman series anymore. Everybody just seems to have forgotten about it. It's kind of just like it just kind of was a thing that was there. Like people still remember Brave and the Bold because Brave and the Bold was great, and people obviously remember the Batman the animated series and all that kind of stuff. But but the Batman just kind of like one of those ones where it slipped between eras and never really distinguished itself.
The only thing I really remembered about it at the time was that their version of the Joker was quite distinctive because he had like big green kind of dreadlocks, and he had like his feet were kind of like hands, like he kind of swung around like he was like a chimp or something. It was and his eyes were red with like a yellow pupil. I remember at the time because this was pre Heath Ledger, so this was just like, this is a drastic departure for the Joker. What the hell has happened here?
I never watched it because it passed me by, and I imagine it passed a lot of people by, and that's why it's kind of like not. See, that's like nobody knows what it's like to watch the Batman.
I mean, you're on the money. I have no bloody idea. I remember it existed.
I think I deliberately avoided a lot of it too because there was just like you had the high bar of the animated series. And then this came out. I was like, this isn't as good. I'm not watching this. But it's only in retrospect, like years later, you're like, I should have watched more of that, though, just for, still content. There's still Batman content. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it in its own way. But like, it's the same
now
with...
you are a mature person now. You understand these things.
That's true. I think I did the same with the early 2000s Teen Titans, which I know, like, regular guest Stephanie Palladino is a huge fan of that show. But that's why, like, I think a lot of people then are really ticked off with Teen Titans Go, because it's the same actors, but they're doing like a really silly version of it. And I love Teen Titans Go because I have no loyalty to the old series. But,
same, yeah.
But it's the same, like their attitude of like, I'm not watching that. That's not the same continuity. That's stupid. But that would have been my attitude when the first Teen Titans was on, because I'll be like, this isn't the Robin I know. This isn't the Robin from the animated series. Like, screw this. So
I was exactly the same. I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah,
I was like, this isn't right. What's going on?
But now I'm in this world where people, like, I'm loving Teen Titans Go, and there's people going, no, it's nowhere near as good as the old show. It's like, I know it's pretty good, though, because it's just really, really silly crap, basically. Like, it's just the zaniest version of these characters you could possibly imagine.
I've noticed this is something with media, right? If it's a movie or a show, people can't accept it being a certain way. With comic books, you can have 100 different continuities. You can have 1 million different interpretations of Robin. You can have stories that contradict each other running simultaneously. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. If you do that in a TV show, if you slightly change anything from the last interpretation of it, people fly off the handle.
Well, obviously what you're missing here is you always have things like Crisis on Infinite Earths that are just like slotted in there to ease things through.
Yeah.
So if they'd have took original Teen Titans and then done like a 90-minute Crisis on Infinite Earth special that turned them into Teen Titans Go, like, I mean, there would have still been people, annoyed, but people would have been like, well, this is Teen Titans now, and they explain this is Teen Titans now in this. But the thing is, it's like, but that is happening now because they're doing Crisis on Infinite Earths for the DC TV series. So they can just go, if we want to change anything now, if we want to recast some actors, if we want to say these characters aren't in a parallel universe now and they're all the same, if we're going to switch the time, we can just do whatever we want. And we're going to have Kevin Conroy's going to be there, so nobody can complain about anything.
So Dick rolls the bomb into the river there, and it detonates underwater. He saved the day, and we get to see a lovely explosion that looks like popcorn. I got hungry looking at that for a minute. I know Niall didn't because he hates popcorn.
This is all true?
Yeah. Niall, I actually overindulged in popcorn at the cinema last night. Believe it or not, I had to leave half the bag, even me. Popcorn fiend.
I just remember that time me and you went to the cinema, and we found a bag of fancy popcorn just lying on a seat. It was one of these things.
And I ate it.
So what's the difference between regular popcorn and fancy popcorn?
Oh, this was like artisanal, fancy flavors and things. So it was, right, this sounds insane. It was caramel and cheese. Right. And they hadn't opened the bag, so I just took it. I'm like, right, I'm having it then. It's sealed.
This is the kind of stuff that would have cost like £4 if you tried to buy it at the cinema.
And it was awesome.
So was the cheese like the cheese flavoring you kind of get on like What's-Its? Was it that kind of consistency?
No, it was very fancy. Like it was made out of real cheddar, kind of, but made into like a powder, to put over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fancy, really lovely. And it actually worked. Those flavors work. It sounds crazy, but then, Americans, some of them put cheese on a bloody apple pie.
That's not even proper. That's like the cheese out of a can. That's just chemical sludge. Like that doesn't count as cheese to me.
No, you have to whack a slice of it on.
I recently, you may have caught it, I recently saw a thing pop up online where an American cooking website or something decided to make mince pies, but they missed the fact that mince meat in a mince pie recipe is not referring to minced meat. So they made a very long time. They did like a traditional Christmas mince pie recipe, but with like minced lamb or something in it, and they had like the caramelized apples and stuff on top. And people were like, "How could they let that happen?" And I'm like, "Listen, Americans like they get up for breakfast." And then they have like a steak and pancakes and sausages and bacon, and then just slather maple syrup all over that. I mean, they'll, of course they would eat it. Of course they would lap it up. That's heaven to them.
It could be lovely for all I know. Yeah,
that is just Joey eating Rachel's, trifle mixed with a shepherd's pie thing.
Oh yeah, the pages get stuck together.
It's like, I don't see what the problem is. Meat's good, custard's good. But I can't believe we spent so much time like in one of the big moments of the movie, like the death of the Graysons. We've been talking about popcorn. We're talking about friggin' mince pies.
Well, we can make all this bonus content. So yeah, we cut back to the tent and we see a shot from above. It's the Graysons. They're all dead.
Well, I do like as well that they do the reaction of Bruce when they hit the floor. Like it's one of the most emotive moments from Val Kilmer. Like he has this flash of real devastation, and the way it goes into his eyes, like they'll do it later, where it's like, of course, this is reminding him of his own parents' death and stuff.
Yeah,
and of course that shot you're referring to, John, is deliberately harkened back to when Bruce is having that flashback, because they even have the circle that they're in. Is like the circle of the street light that the Waynes are lying in and stuff.
It's good. It's actually, for this movie, it's quite subtle. Because in any other movie like this, it would just literally show you that flashback for a split second again.
Yeah.
but this movie restrained itself and put a little bit of depth in there. You have to read into his expression.
This really is kind of like, oh, you get this, right? Like it isn't trying to grab you by the hand and walk you through it. It actually is doing something with a degree of subtlety.
Yeah, and it works. They pull it off. And you said that you like the reactions. I like even Chase. I like her reaction. I like that we don't see them hit. I think it's more shocking seeing people's faces.
Yeah. Oh, I think it does that thing that the first movie did, where it's like, oh, there's falling to your death doesn't result in your body being completely liquefied. It's like, oh, they're dead, but they're perfectly intact at the same time.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. It's quite romantic.
Oh, as I was just going to say, I was thinking two things while I was watching this scene, and the first thing I was thinking was, I'm playing the most recent Hitman games at the moment. I got Hitman 2 for Christmas, and I was thinking, why hasn't there been a level in a Hitman game set in a circus yet, where you can like rig up the acrobats, to have an unfortunate accident and all that kind.
Oh, that'd be amazing! And think about all the disguises you could put on.
Yeah. IO Interactive, if you're listening, you can have that one for free. Secondly, I wonder, has like trapeze artists and like acrobatics related deaths like decreased over time? Like, is that something that's almost unrealistic as a superhero origin story at this point? Because you'd kind of think with like technology and the tensile strength of nets or whatever these days, you wouldn't have those kind of accidents. And what I discovered was, they were never really that common to begin with. Like, it was only very rarely, even back in the day, that anybody would really slip up. But B, it still hasn't really gone away though, and they still happen every now and again. And it was like only last year in 2018, one of the Cirque du Soleil people died. So it's sort of like, well, I guess, like, and then I was thinking, you could do a modern reinterpretation of Robin where it was in the Cirque du Soleil. You could like elevate that from like the regular, just the regular Common Garden circus stuff, and say they were like, world renowned. Are they French Cirque du Soleil or the French Canadian? I always forget.
I just always assumed they were French, but they might be French Canadian. I'm not entirely sure.
I for some reason seem to think there's a Canadian thing going on.
Well, it'll be one of the two. So I'm right one way or the other. So you could have video game developer Mountain Dew drinking Riddler versus Cirque du Soleil's golden boy Dick Grayson. It's all coming together.
And you can keep the Riddler's hair, that orange that he gets, because it's stained from all the Doritos he's eating.
Yes, that's right. Oh, actually, this is also, I'm starting to come into my head now. It's like Edward Nigma, video game developer, wants to sort of like develop VR tech that means you'll never need to go and see a stage acrobatics ever again, because you can put on my VR tech and it can, it can like be like you're there, and he's sort of like intimidated by the Cirque du Soleil people with the serial numbers filed off for copyright reasons, and so he wants to bump them off because they're speaking out against his VR tech and all this kind of stuff, and how it can't replace the real experience. I've got half a working script already.
This is amazing. Get to work. We'll stop the show.
You can't have this one for free. This one you have to pay for. But I'm available.
Keep
for
stum
it.
with any more of that, maybe. Then they might steal it.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll also know as well, when we're talking about like the Robin's Reckoning episode, in conjunction to what we were discussing last episode, where like Bruce Wayne's really not covering this up well. The fact that he's Batman by going in his tux and beating up all these goons and stuff. The Robin's Reckoning episode, because it has Bruce Wayne there at the circus as well, they do a great job of him kind of covering up that he's Batman. Because like they're like, oh, like, our biggest donor, Bruce Wayne, and he stands up and he's got like his soda and his popcorn, and he's trying to wave to people, and the freaking popcorn goes flying out of his hand, and he knocks over the soda, and he's like, oh my god, like he's acting a total like a Christopher Reeve-esque Clark Kent.
See, I like that interpretation of Bruce Wayne as this sort of like, when I'm ever in the Bruce Wayne persona, if I have to ever do anything strenuous or like high stakes, I have to bumble about and make myself look like I'm completely useless doing it. I love it when that happens.
But so yeah, they again with mere seconds to do it, the animated series, like, oh, they nailed this character more than most other interpretations of him. But there's a thing in the novelization, like they add in an element. I don't know if it's necessary. I do like it, but I think it's a bit like it's like putting a hat on a hat, because it's like, well, Bruce already has his reasons for taking in Dick, and obviously he has like it's friggin' I feel for this kid and stuff. But there's I
feel for this 27, 28-year-old man.
That's the thing. When he's looking up at him, he must be just thinking like, that poor man, like that poor fully grown man. I think his wife and his brothers died or something. It's like, no, that's his parents. It's like, what? Get the hell out of here. But they add in a thing where in the confrontation with TwoFace, as you might recall, it was in the Goldsman draft when Batman was confronting TwoFace earlier in the movie, and it was a deleted scene that you can actually get. where Two-Face points out, like, oh, well, you're no different from me. You're a killer, too. And that really affects Batman, because, as we've been discussing, this whole show, Batman's killing people left and right and stuff. And there's a moment in that novelization where Two-Face is looking up and he's about to shoot the Graysons. Actually, you should also know as well, in the Bachelor draft, he doesn't shoot them with a Tommy gun. He has a throwing star, which is just a needless, silly complication. Within the novelization, then, Bruce grabs one of the machine guns and he has Two-Face in his sight and he's about to mow him down before Two-Face can shoot the Graysons. And he has a flash of Harvey saying, like, oh, you're a killer too. And he hesitates a moment. And then, sort of in conflict, he just throws the gun at him. And it does hit Two-Face, and it deflects the bullet, but it's just a second too late. And then the bullets have already started going up, and that's, causes the Graysons to die. And so there's also this other element added on now. Bruce is like, I am responsible for the death of this kid's parents. Which is, like, it's there as an extra thing. It's like, this is why he feels the need to take him in and stuff. But it's also like, well, you already would feel the need to take him in. Like, it just feels like you're adding. I always appreciate adding more character and stuff into it, but it just seems like you don't need it. Like, it's not a thing that, like.
Yeah, I accept it already because he just sort of sees himself in Dick.
Yeah,
so that's all you need. Like, that's why he wants to take him in. He wants to make sure he's gonna be okay and not turn out like he has.
Although, bitter irony. It's like, well,
yeah,
don't you become any kind of costume vigilante, kid.
Oops. Yeah, he doesn't put up much of a fight against that, does he? He's like, oh no, Dick, no, don't do that.
Wait, stop, come back.
I actually like the acting as well here, because Dick's looking down. It's one of the best bits of acting he does in the whole movie.
I think this may be the peak of Chris O'Donnell in this franchise. Is this look he does?
It is. It's a great look. It's the peak of him. It's the peak of his acting I've seen him in anything. Because he's pulling off that dual thing of. He looks shattered. He's really tired. He's really spent. He's just got rid of this bomb. He's emotionally drained, and now he's also in shock. And he's pulling all that off with one look. He's doing really well with it.
Yeah.
High praise.
And it's just, it's good that the movie gives it time to breathe as well. It's like, this moment of devastation happens, and then everything slows right the hell down. The music really drains out. There's a very sorrowful violin coming in, but it's not overwrought. It's just sort of like, it is what it is. And it's like, it just lets it happen. It lets you take in. They're like, holy crap, this... Well, again, it is distracting where it's like, this is blatantly a fully grown man. But in theory, it should be like, oh, this child's parents have died.
Yeah.
So it is like, it's like, this is a really well done sequence.
Yeah, I mean, compare and contrast to that bit in The Dark Knight Rises where Joseph Gordon-Levitt shoots a guy, and then he looks at his gun, and then he looks a little bit sad. And then we just move on. That was his origin story in The Dark Knight Rises. So I think that there was more of an emotional core in Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't think I'd be saying that. I didn't think I'd be saying Batman Forever is the emotional one, the somber one, the one that breathes and plays out. But there you go.
That's another thing, though, because, I do like as well that they take the time. You get a close up of Dick and Chris O'Donnell giving it his all, and then cutting to Bruce just staring back at him, and
blankly,
but just having that kind of like, he's completely on board with his kid. Reminded me though, one of my favorite panels in any Batman comic. Upload, much like last episode, I'll upload it in the Skype chat here, and I'll post it in the group so other people can see it. But in Dark Victory, the sequel to The Long Halloween, they cover the death of the Graysons, and I just really love it because they have a shot of, it's a double page spread, and it's Dick Grayson looking down, seeing the parents are dead, and everybody else in the circus is like staring down at the bodies in shock, and the one person looking up at the kid is Bruce Wayne, because he's the only one there who's like, his mind automatically goes to the kid because he's been there. Whereas everyone else is just like, oh my god, look at the bodies and stuff. And
that would have been a good shot here, actually, if you saw more people around Bruce looking down.
But it's like, I just really like it as well, because in Dark Victory, the story of that's all about Batman kind of hardening his heart because he trusted Harvey Dent, and Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face in The Long Halloween. Spoilers for The Long Halloween. And then the rest, like Dark Victory, is all him talking about like, yeah, just like I've closed myself off from people, and like I'll work with Gordon, but he's not my friend or anything like that. And then he's very emotionless throughout most of it because he's trying to be as tough as possible. And then in that one shot of him looking up at Dick Grayson, the way they've drawn him is so wrought with emotion. It's just like, this is the one little bit you get of like, oh, this guy still is human. He's still got like a heart in there somewhere. But like, yeah, I sent the shot of it into the Skype chat there. Just so I think that's just a really well done, and that's the way the issue starts. Like, they don't show you the Graysons dying. It just starts with Dick looking down, Bruce looking up, and that's the beginning of the Robin origin story and stuff. But yeah, a good thing it did well in that comic, but does really well here as well. Like, I can't fault Joel Schumacher for his direction in rendering the story to life.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And I do like here as well, you said everything calms down and goes quiet and that. And the villains are gone. Like, they've all fled the scene. It's almost as if nothing has happened bar this. Like, there's a moment of action, oh, tragedy, and then calm. Everything's returned to normal for a lot of people, but not for Dick.
That's like a lot of people are. You could argue that they're being too calm because no one's rushing over to like, oh, maybe we can still save them or something. Everyone's just like, oh, they must be dead. Like, there's no way they're coming back from that.
They're groaning. Oh, it's like, nope, they're dead.
It's just like, nah, I mean, is there a doctor in the house? Like, oh, he's away in the back row. There's no Chase, can you do something? She's like, I don't know. I got a nice dress on. I don't want to.
I know, you should, no matter what's happened, unless they're like dismembered, you should probably be trying anything, something. You never know. A miracle could happen.
It should be like maybe a shot of maybe Chase Meridian checking the pulse or something, and then Len looking up at Dick and like shaking her head or something.
It could be a subtle, nod towards the cynicism of Gotham City, sort of like that desensitized to violence and immorality that has basically kind of been emphasized since the first film of the series. It's just like, well, they're dead.
Yeah, oh, that was a shame, wasn't it?
Got the one guy in the crowd going like, woo, clapping his hands, thinking it's all part of the act. Holy crap, this is crazy. This circus is crazy. But yeah, the minute's kind of coming to an end here. Well, I think we'd be remiss, though, we didn't mention within the 66 movie where the bomb is coming from. And this scene has, like, beyond some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. Also has one of my favorite lines where after Batman's got rid of the bomb, Robin approaches him and is like, oh, you saved all those people in the tavern. And Batman's like, they may be drinkers, Robin, but they're still human. It's like, how judgmental were they in the 60s? Just like people at a bar could have been considered subhuman in some way.
You're forgetting where we live, right? I think Americans have a different relationship with alcohol. Over here, if you're not drinking, it's weird. Like, it's nearly 2 p.m. as we're recording, and I haven't had a drink yet. It feels odd.
Yeah, it's like over here, British Batman, also for the comic book readers, that's Knight and Squire. There's a very good mini-series written by Paul Cornell, so check that out. But he would be saying, they may be, teetotalers, Squire, but they're still human beings.
But are they? No. If you are teetotal for any reason, I do support you.
If anything, because that's who gets to be the designated driver when you're out, on a spree.
That's why I support you.
Yes.
Yeah? I need a lift. Well, we will depart once more. We'll do our plugs again on Friday. Everyone, I put it all in the show notes anyway. But come and send us a message on the Bat Minute Listeners Cave and buy a T-shirt on TeePublic. That's always helpful. That helps us do even more cool stuff like our Christmas episode we did. Because a lot of work goes into that. Jesus Christ. A lot of work goes into the whole thing. Damn it, you should appreciate it. Appreciate this free content. But do join us again on Friday for more Bat Minutes Forever.
Next time, holy humping horses, Batman! Now that his family has fallen from grace, Bruce grants a Grayson a stay at his place. But as this surly adolescent cycles past some sexualized steeds, will he even accept help in his hour of need? Find out Friday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.